spooky, holly jolly stories for us to just sit back and listen to while we relax. Now, it's been a really, really long time since we've gotten up close and personal like this. So I apologize for any scuff. Please do let me know if there is something wrong at any point during the storytelling. But besides that, what else is there to do other than to just get comfy around the campfire? Well, in this case, a fireplace, I suppose. While I tell you some stories. So, whether you're gonna drift off to sleep or you're gonna stay awake, I hope you've brought a snack. Yes. Now, keep in mind that the stories I'm gonna be telling today aren't your typical Christmas story. They're spooky. Spooky. So, do you feel brave today? Do you feel jolly and brave? Scary. Yes. I've brought my book with me. My blank book of spooky stories. Right here. You can hear it. Yes. And so, I think without further ado, we can just go ahead and begin, right? So, for our first story of today, our first holly jolly spooky tale I selected. It's called, and it's a bit of a funny name. It's called Smee. Smee. Yes, Smee. S-M-E-E. Now, some of these stories will be creepypastas, yes. And a lot of them I skimmed through before selecting. However, personally, I prefer to find out the story of the story with you guys. So, this will be the first time I'll be reading through it as well. It goes for most of the stories today. So yeah, we're gonna share this first time of the stories together. Okay. Let's go. First story of today. Smee. So I have my water here. So if you hear me picking up my water bottle, opening and drinking. In the middle of the stories, do not be surprised. Okay. Jackson with a little shy smile. "I'm sorry. I won't play hide and seek." It was Christmas Eve, and there were 14 of us in the house. We had a good dinner, and we were all in the mood for fun and games. All that is, except Jackson. When somebody suggested hide and seek, there were loud shouts of agreement. Jackson's refusal was the only one. It was not like Jackson to refuse to play a game. "Aren't you feeling well?" someone asked. "I'm perfectly alright, thank you," he said. "But," he added with a smile that softened his refusal but did not change it, "I am still not playing hide and seek." "Why not?" someone asked. He hesitated for a moment before replying. "I sometimes go and stay at a house where a girl was killed. She was playing hide and seek in the dark. She didn't know the house very well. There was a door that led to the servants' staircase. When she was chased, she thought the door led to a bedroom. She opened the door and jumped and landed right at the bottom of the stairs. She broke her neck, of course." We all looked serious. Mrs. Friendly said, "How terrible. Were you there when it happened?" Jackson shook his head and said sadly said, "No, but I was there when something else happened. Something worse." "What could be worse than that?" "This was," said Jackson. He hesitated for a moment. Then he said, "I wonder if any of you have ever played a game called Smee. It's much better than hide and seek. The name comes from It's Me, of course." I would not have guessed that. Perhaps you'd like to play it instead of hide and seek. Let me tell you the rules of this game. Every player is given a sheet of paper. All the sheets, except one, are blank. On the last sheet of paper is written Smee. Nobody knows who Smee is, except Smee himself or herself. You turn out the lights, and Smee goes quietly out of the room and hides. After the time, the others go off to search for Smee, but of course, they don't know who they are looking for. When one player meets another, he challenges him by saying, "Smee." The other player answers, "Smee," and they continue searching. But the real Smee doesn't answer when someone challenges. The second player stays quietly beside him. Presently, they will be discovered by a third player. He will challenge and receive no answer, and he will join the first two. This goes on until all the players are in the same place. The last one to find Smee has to pay a forfeit. It's a good, noisy, amusing game. In a big house, it often takes a long time for everyone to find Smee. Perhaps you'd like to try? I'll happily pay my forfeit and sit here by the fire while you play. "It sounds a good game," I remarked. "Have you played it too, Jackson?" "Yes," he answered. "I played it in the house that I was telling you about." "And she was there? The girl who broke—" No, said someone else. "He told us he wasn't there when she broke her neck." Jackson thought for a moment. "I don't know if she was there or not. I'm afraid she was. I know that there were 13 of us playing the game, and there were only 12 people in the house. And I didn't know the dead girl's name. When I heard that whispered name in the dark, it didn't worry me. But I tell you, I'm never gonna play that kind of game again. It made me quite nervous for a long time. I prefer to pay my forfeit all at once." We all stared at him. His words did not make sense at all. Tim Vouse was the kindest man in the world. He smiled at us. "This sounds like an interesting story," he said. Come on, Jackson, you can tell it to us instead of paying a forfeit. Very well, said Jackson, and here is his story. Have you met the Sangstons? They are cousins of mine, and they live in Surrey. 5 years ago, they invited me to go and spend Christmas with them. It was an old house with lots of unnecessary passages and staircase. A stranger could get lost in it quite easily. Well, I went down for that Christmas. Violet Sangston promised me that I knew most of the other guests. Unfortunately, I couldn't get away from my job until Christmas Eve. All the other guests had arrived there the previous day. I was the last to arrive, and I was only just in time for dinner. I said hello to everyone I knew, and Violet Sangston introduced me to the people I didn't know. Then it was time to go into dinner. That is perhaps why I didn't hear the name of a tall, dark-haired, handsome girl whom I hadn't met before. Everyone was in rather a hurry, and I am always bad at catching people's names. She looked cold and clever. She didn't look at all friendly, but she looked interesting, and I wondered who she was. I didn't ask because I was sure that someone would speak to her by name during the meal. Unluckily, however, I was a long way from her at the table. I was sitting next to Mrs. Gorman, and as usual, Mrs. Gorman was being very bright and amusing. Her conversation is always worth listening to, and I completely forgot to ask the name of the dark, proud girl. There were 12 of us, including the Sangstons themselves. We were all young, or trying to be young. Jack and Violet Sangston were the oldest, and their 17-year-old son Reggie was the youngest. It was Reggie who suggested Smee when the talk turned to games. He told us the rules of the game, just as I've described them to you. Jack Sangston warned us all. If you're going to play the game in the dark, he said, please be careful of the back stairs on the first floor. That door leads to them, and I've often thought about taking the door off taking the door off. In the dark, a stranger to the house could think they were walking into a room. A girl really did break her neck on those stairs. I asked how it happened. It was about 10 years ago, before we came here. There was a party and they were playing hide and seek. This girl was looking for somewhere to hide. She heard somebody coming and ran alongside a passage to get away. She opened the door, thinking it led to a bedroom. She planned to hide in there until the seeker had gone. Unfortunately, it was the door that led to the back stairs. She fell straight down to the bottom of the stairs. She was dead when they picked her up. We all promised to be careful. Mrs. Gorman even made a little joke about living to be 90. You see, none of us had known the poor girl, and we did not want to feel sad on Christmas Eve. Well, we all started the game immediately after dinner. Young Reggie Sangston went round, making sure that all the lights were off, except the ones in the servants' rooms and in the sitting room where we were. We then prepared 12 sheets of paper. 11 of them were blank, and one of them had Smee written on it. Reggie mixed them all up, and then we took one each. The person who got the paper with Smee on it had to hide. I looked at mine and saw that it was blank. A moment later, all the electric lights went out. In the darkness, I heard someone moving very quietly to the door. After a minute, somebody blew a whistle, and we all rushed to the door. I had no idea who was Smee. For 5 or 10 minutes, We were all rushing up and down passages and in and out of rooms, challenging each other and answering, "Smee? Smee." After a while, the noise died down, and I guessed that someone had found Smee. After a time, I found a group of people all sitting on some narrow stairs. I challenged and received no answer, so Smee was there. I hurriedly joined the group. Presently, 2 more players arrived. Each one was hurrying to avoid being last. 𖥔These was last, and was given a forfeit. "I think we're all here now, aren't we?" he remarked. He lit a match, looked up the staircase, and began to count. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, he said, and then laughed. "That's silly. There's one too many." The match went out, and he lit another one and began to count. He got as far as 12. Then he looked puzzled. "There are 13 people here," he said. "I haven't counted myself yet." "Oh, nonsense," I laughed. "You probably began with yourself, and now you want to count yourself twice." His son took out his electric torch. It gave better light than the matches, and we all began to count. Of course, there were 12 of us. Jack laughed. "Well," he said, "I was sure I counted 13 twice." From halfway above the stairs, 𖥔These spoke nervously. "I thought there was somebody sitting 2 steps above me. Have you moved, Captain Ransom?" The captain said he hadn't. "But I thought there was someone sitting between Mrs. Sangston and me." Just for a moment, there was an uncomfortable something in the air. A cold finger seemed to touch us as well. For that moment, we all felt that something odd and unpleasant had just happened, and was likely going to happen again. Then we laughed at ourselves and at each other, and we felt normal again. There were only 12 of us, and that was that. Still laughing, we marched back to the sitting room to begin again. Let me grab some more water before I continue. Yeah, I'm sure it's nothing. Okay, continuing. This time, I was Smee. 𖥔These found me while I was searching for a hiding place. That game didn't last very long. Soon there were 12 people and the game was over. Violet felt cold and wanted her jacket. Her husband went up to the bedroom to fetch it. As soon as he'd gone, Reggie touched me on the arm. He was looking pale and sick. "Quick," he whispered. "I've got to talk to you. Something horrible has happened." We went to the breakfast room. "What's the matter?" I asked. "I don't know. You were Smee last time, weren't you?" Well, of course I didn't know who Smee was. While Mother and the others ran to the west side of the house and found you, I went east. There's a deep clothes cupboard in my bedroom. It looked like a good hiding spot, and I thought perhaps Smee might be there. I opened the door in the dark and touched somebody's hand. "Smee?" I whispered. There was no answer. I thought I found Smee. Well, I don't understand. But I suddenly had a strange cold feeling. I can't describe it, but I felt that something was wrong, so I turned on my electric torch and there was nobody there. Now, I'm sure I touched a hand, and nobody could get out of the cupboard because I was standing in the doorway. What do you think? "You imagined that you touched a hand," I said. He gave a short laugh. "I knew you'd say that," he said.
Of course I imagined it. That's the only explanation, isn't it? I agreed with him. I could see that he still felt shaken. Together, we returned to the sitting room for another game of Smee. The others were all ready and waiting to start again. Perhaps it was my imagination, although I'm almost sure that it was not. But I had a feeling that nobody was really enjoying the game anymore. But everyone was just too polite to mention it. All the same, I had a feeling that something was wrong. All the fun had gone out of the game. Something deep inside of me was trying to warn me. "Take care," it whispered. "Take care." There was some unnatural, unhealthy influence at work in the house. Why did I have this feeling? Because Jack Sangston had counted 13 people instead of 12? Because his son had imagined he had touched someone else's hand in an empty cupboard? I tried to laugh at myself, but I did not succeed. Well, we started again. While we were all chasing the unknown Smee, we were all as noisy as ever. But it seemed that, to me, most of us were just acting. We were no longer enjoying the game. At first I stayed with the others, but for several minutes no Smee was found. I left the main group and started searching on the first floor at the west side of the house. And there, while I was feeling my way along, I bumped into a pair of human knees. I put out my hand and touched the soft, heavy curtain. Then I knew where I was. There were tall, deep windows with window seats at the end of the passage. The curtains reached to the ground. Somebody was sitting in the corner of one of the window seats behind the curtain. Aha, I thought. I've caught Smee. So I pulled the curtain to one side and touched a woman's arm. It was dark. A dark, moonless night outside. I couldn't see the woman sitting in the corner of the window seat. "Smee?" I whispered. There was no answer. When Smee is challenged, he or she does not answer, so I sat down beside her to wait for the others. Then I whispered, "What's your name?" And out of the darkness beside me, the whisper came, "Brenda Ford." I did not know that name, but I guessed at once who she was. I knew every girl in the house by name except one, and that was the tall, pale, dark girl. So here she was sitting beside me on the window seat, shut in between a heavy curtain and a window. I was beginning to enjoy the game. I wondered if she was enjoying it too. I whispered one or two rather ordinary questions to her and received no answer. Smee is a game of silence. It is a rule of the game that Smee and the person or persons who have found Smee have to keep quiet. This, of course, makes it harder for the others to find them. But there was nobody else about. I wondered, therefore, why she was insisting on silence. I spoke again and got no answer. I began to feel a little annoyed. Perhaps she is one of those cold, clever girls who have a poor opinion of all men, I thought. She doesn't like me, and she is using the rules of the game as an excuse for not speaking. Well, if she doesn't like sitting here with me, I certainly don't want to sit with her. I turned away from her. I hope someone finds us soon, I thought. As I sat there, I realized that I disliked sitting beside this girl very much indeed. That was strange. The girl I had seen at dinner had seemed likable in a cold kind of way. I noticed her and wanted to know more about her, but now I felt really uncomfortable beside her. The feeling of something wrong, something unnatural, was growing. I remembered touching her arm, and I trembled with horror. I wanted to jump up and run away. I prayed that someone else would come along soon, and just then I heard light footsteps in the passage. Someone on the other side of the curtain brushed up against my knee. The curtain moved to one side, and a woman's hand touched my shoulder. "Smee?" whispered a voice that I recognized at once. It was Mrs. Gorman. Of course she received no answer. She came and sat down beside me, and at once I felt very much better. "It's Tony Jackson, isn't it?" she whispered. "Yes," I whispered back. "You're not Smee, are you?" "No, she's on my side. On my other side." She reached out across me. I heard her fingernails scratch a woman's silk dress. "Hello, Smee. How are you? Who are you? Oh, is it against the rules to talk? Never mind. Tony, we'll break the rules. Do you know, Tony, this game is beginning to annoy me a little. I hope they aren't going to play it all evening. I like to play a nice, quiet game, all together beside a warm fire." "Me too," I agreed. "Can't you suggest something to them? There's something rather unhealthy about this particular game. I'm sure I'm being very silly, but I can't get rid of the idea that we've got an extra player. Somebody who ought to not be here at all." That was exactly how I felt. But I didn't say so. However, I felt much better. Mrs. Gorman's arrival had chased away my fears. We sat talking. "I wonder when the others will find us," said Mrs. Gorman. After a time, we heard the sound of feet, and young Reggie's voice shouting, "Hello, hello, is anybody there?" "Yes," I answered. "Is Mrs. Gorman with you?" "Yes." "What happened to you? You both got forfeits. We've all been waiting for you for hours." "But you haven't found Smee yet," I complained. "You haven't? You mean I was Smee this time?" "But Smee is here with us," I cried. "Yes," agreed Mrs. Gorman. The curtain was pulled back, and we sat looking into the eye of Reggie's electric torch. I looked at Mrs. Gorman, and then on my other side. Between me and the wall was an empty place on the window seat. I stood up at once. Then I sat down again. I was feeling very sick, and the world seemed to be going round and round. "There was somebody there," I insisted, "because I touched her." "So did I," said Mrs. Gorman in a trembling voice. "And I don't think anyone could leave this window seat without us knowing." Reggie gave a shaky little laugh. I remembered his unpleasant experience earlier that evening. "Someone's been playing jokes," he said. "Are you coming down?" Okay, next page. We were not very popular when we came down to the sitting room. "I found the two of them sitting behind a curtain on a window seat," said Reggie. I went up to the tall, dark girl. "So you pretended to be Smee and then went away?" I accused her. She shook her head. Afterwards, we all played cards in the sitting room, and I was very glad. Sometime later, Jack Sangston wanted to talk to me. I could see that he was rather cross with me, and soon he told me the reason. "Tony," he said, "I suppose you are in love with Mrs. Gorman? That's your business, but please don't make love to her in my house during a game. You kept everyone waiting. It's very rude of you, and I'm ashamed of you." "But we were not alone," I protested. "There was somebody else there. Somebody who was pretending to be Smee. I believe it was that tall, dark girl, Miss Ford. She whispered her name to me, of course. Of course she refused to admit it afterwards." Jack Sangston stared at me. "Miss who?" he breathed. Brenda Ford, she said. Jack put a hand on my shoulder. Look here, Tony, he said. I don't mind a joke, but enough is enough. We don't want to worry the ladies. Brenda Ford is the name of the girl who broke her neck on the stairs. She was playing hide and seek here 10 years ago. And that is the end of our first story. Hi. Thank you so much for the raid. Welcome. You are really good timing. We just finished the first story of today. Hi. Yahoo. 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 Nice to meet ya. I'm Mitty, and we are telling spooky Christmas stories. So, if you're feeling comfy, just sit back and relax, because we've just finished our first one and we're about to continue on with the second one. Yeah, I hope you had a good stream. Thank you so much for the raid. Thank you. Yes. What were you up to? I hope you had a good time. I hope you're feeling holly jolly. So yeah, that was a pretty spooky story. Would you guys want to play the Shmee game? To be honest, it sounds like kind of a weird Among Us game, right? From what I understood. Hi, you sound familiar. You might want to check my video on Cloverfield, I don't know. Might be something that interests you. Yes. Don't you just auto-win if you are the Smee? Is it? I mean, yeah, that's what I'm thinking, because, like, supposedly, if you are the Smee, you cannot say anything. But, like, I guess you're gonna have to try to convince people that you were not the first person there. But, like, it's gonna be your word versus somebody else's word, you know? Because, like, unless several people find you at once, that's, like, game over for you. You can tell the Smee by their smelly feet. Not the smelly feet. Yeah. You're playing Momo Crash? I don't think I've heard about that. But yeah, I hope you had a good time. I think if you're Smee, you're not competing that round. Sounds more like a one loser type of game. It's a don't be last game. Yeah, but like, is it that people cannot communicate? How do... I don't know. I got quite confused while reading. I was trying to understand the game myself. Yes. Well, anyways, confusing or not, that was our first story. Basically, the last person to find Smee is the loser. Oh, I see. But they said that the last person gets like forfeit, right? Doesn't that mean that they're like free of consequence of like, or like free of losing? Unless my ESLness completely misinterpreted that. So I see. The last person to find this Smee is the loser. The last person gets to do a punishment. Ah! Okay. That makes more sense, I think. That's where it's kind of weird, but I think the girl has it. The last person... Okay, yeah. I see. Usually used when you abandon a game. Okay. Makes more sense now. Okay, so get ready for our second story. Let me come here and grab it. how do you feel? And this is gonna be a funny thing to say, but how do you feel about a zombie flick, but like Christmas themed? I found this one and I think it sounded fun. I don't think I've ever read like a zombie flick in written format. Oh, by the way, just for the record, Smee was written by A.M. Barrage. So yeah, that is who made that story. This one is not a creepypasta. I just found it randomly and it looked interesting. Yes. Okay. So zombie flick sounds good. Let me just make sure this looks fine. Okay. It's called Christmas with the Dead. Ho ho girl. Alright. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Okay. Let me just pull this closer to me. And get onto the first page. Okay, I can use my arrow key. That's awesome. I mean, my fingers to move the pages of the book. Alright, so let's try this one. And I'm very curious about Christmas with the Dead. Okay. Maybe I should drink some water before. Cheers. Let's start. Christmas with the Dead. It was a foolish thing to do, and Calvin had not bothered with it the last 2 years. Not since the death of his wife and daughter, but this year, this late morning, the loneliness and the monotony led him to it. He decided quite suddenly, having kept fairly good record on the calendar, that tomorrow was Christmas Eve, and zombies be damned. The Christmas lights and decorations were going up. He went into the garage to look for the... Hold up. Sorry. That was a crazy first sentence. What? 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 Okay, I gotta read this. We gotta read this. Okay. I need a moment. Hold on. Okay. Okay, I'm fine. Shh. Relax. Sit back, relax. You're supposed to be asleep, Lucky Charms. Okay. Christmas lights and decorations were going up. He went into the garage to look for the lights. He could hear the zombies sniffing around outside the garage door. The door was down and locked tight, and on top of that, though the zombies could grab and bite you, they weren't terribly strong most of the time, so the door was secure. The windows inside were boarded over, the doors were locked and double-locked and boarded, and the backyard, the dead-owned, but the windows and doors were boarded really well there, so he was shut in tight and safe. Prowling around through the holiday ornaments, he found immediately the large plastic Santa and 3 long strings of light. They were the ones he had ripped down in anger about 2 years back. He managed all the strings of light into his living room. Sorry, I needed to burp. He plugged the wires into the extension cord that was hooked up to the generator he had in the kitchen, and discovered most of the lights were as dead as the proverbial dodo bird. Many were broken from when he had torn them down. He sat for a moment, then went to the little refrigerator he had replaced the big one with. It used less energy, and pulled a bottled coffee out, twisted off the cap, and walked over the living room window. Unlike the garage on the side of the house or the backyard, he had fenced the front yard off with deeply buried iron bars to which he had attached chicken wire, overlapped with barbed wire. The fence rose to a height of 8 feet. The gate, also 8 feet tall, was made of the same. He seldom used it. He mostly went out and back in through the garage. There was no fence there. When he went out, they were waiting. More often than not, he was able to run over and crush a few before hitting the door device, closing the garage behind him. On the way back, he rammed a few more, and with the touch of a button, sealed himself inside. When they were thin in the yard, he used that time to stack the bodies in his pickup truck, haul them somewhere to dump. It kept the stink down that way. Also, the rotting flesh tended to attract the hungry dead. The less he made them feel at home, the better. Today, looking through the gaps between the boards nailed over the window, he could see the zombies beyond the fence. They were pulling at the wire, but it was firm, and they were weak. He had discovered that strangely, as it grew darker, they grew stronger. Nothing spectacular, but enough he could notice it. They were definitely faster then. It was as if the day made them sluggish, and the night rejuvenated them, gave them a shot of energy, like maybe the moon was their mistress. He noticed, too, that though there were plenty of them, there were fewer every day. He knew why. He had seen the results, not only around town, but right outside his fence. From time to time, they just fell apart. It was plain old natural disintegration. As time rolled on, their dead and rotten bodies came apart for some reason, not as fast as normal, but still, they did indeed break down. Of course, if they bit someone, they would become zombies. Fresher ones, but after the last 6 months, there were few, if any, people left in town besides himself. He didn't know how it was outside of town, but he assumed the results were similar. The zombies now, from time to time, turned on one another. Eating with flesh, they could manage to bite off each other's rotten bones. Dogs, cats, snakes, anything they could get their hands on had been devastated. It was a new world, and it sucked. And sometimes it chewed. Back in the garage, Calvin gathered up the 6 large plastic snowmen and the Santa and put them into the house. He plunged them in and happily discovered they were lit right up, but the strings of lights were still a problem. He searched the garage and only found 3 spare bulbs, green ones. And when he screwed them in, only one worked. If he put up those strings, they would be patchy. It wasn't as if anyone but himself would care, but a job worth doing was a job worth doing right, as his dad always said. He smiled. Ella, his wife, would have said it wasn't about doing a job right. It was more about fulfilling his compulsions. She would laugh at him now. Back then, a crooked picture on the wall would make him crazy. Now, there was nothing neat about the house. It was a fortress. It was a mess. It was a place to stay, but it wasn't a home. 2 years ago, it ended being a home when he shot his wife and daughter in the head with a 12 gauge, put their bodies in the dumpster down the street, poured gas on them, and set them on fire. All atmosphere of home was gone. Now, with him being the most desirable snack in town, just going outside the fence was a dangerous endeavor. And being inside, he was as lonely as the guest of honor at a firing squad. Calvin picked the strapped shotgun off the couch and flung it over his shoulder, adjusted the .38 revolver in his belt, grabbed the old-fashioned tire tool from where it leaned in a corner, and went back to the garage. He cranked up the truck, which he always backed in, and using the automatic garage opener, pressed it. He had worked hard on the mechanism so that it would rise quickly and smoothly, and today was no exception. It yawned wide like a mouth opening. 3 zombies, one he recognized faintly as Marilyn Paulson, a girl he had dated in high school, were standing outside. She had been his first love, his first sexual partner, and now half of her face dangled like a washcloth on a clothesline. Her hair was falling out, and her eyes were set far back in her head like dark marbles in crawfish holes. The 2 others were men. One was reasonably fresh, but Calvin didn't recognize him. The other was his next-door neighbor, Phil Tooney. Phil looked close to falling apart. Already his face had collapsed, and his nose was gone, as well as both ears. As Calvin roared, the big 4-seater picked up out of the garage. He hit Marilyn with a bumper, and she went under. The wing mirror clipped Phil and sent him winding. He glanced in the rear view as he hit the garage mechanism. Was pleased to see the door go down before the standing zombie could get inside. From time to time, they got in when he left or returned, and he had to seal them in, get out, and fight or shoot them. It was a major annoyance, knowing you had that waiting for you when you got back from town. The last thing he saw as he drove away was the remaining zombie eating a mashed Marilyn as she squirmed on the driveway. He had shattered her legs with the truck. She was unable to fight back. The way his teeth clamped into her and pulled, it was as if they were trying to bite old bubblegum loose from the sidewalk. Another glance in the mirror showed him Phil was back on his feet. He and the other zombie got into it then, fighting over the writhing meal of the cement. And then Calvin turned the truck along Seal Street, out of their view, and rolled on towards town. Driving, he glanced at all the Christmas decorations. The lights strung on houses no longer lit. The yard decorations, most of them knocked over. Baby Jesus flung south from an overturned manager. A deflated blow-up Santa Claus in a sleigh with hooked-up reindeer now lying like a puddle of lumpy paint spills in the high grass of a yard fronting a house with an open door. As he drove, Calvin glanced at the dumpster by the side of the road, the one where he had put the bodies of his wife and daughter and burned them. It was, as far as he was concerned, their tomb. One morning, driving into town for supplies, a morning like this, he had seen zombies in the dumpster chewing at bones, strings of flesh. It had driven him crazy. He had pulled over right then and there and shotgunned them, blowing off 2 heads and crushing in 2 others with the butt of the 12 gauge. Then he had pulled a tire tool from his belt and beat their corpses to pieces. It had been easy, as they were rotten and ragged and almost gone. It was the brain being destroyed that stopped them. Either that, or their own timely disintegration, which, with the destruction of the brain, caused the rot to accelerate. But even with them down for the count, he kept whacking them, screaming and crying as he did. He swallowed as he drove by. Had he not been napping after a hard day's work, waiting on dinner, then he too would have been like Ella and Tina. He wasn't sure which was worse, becoming one of them, not knowing anything or anyone anymore, being eternally hungry, or surviving, losing his wife and daughter, and having to remember them every day. Mud Creek's Super Saver parked lot was full of cars and bones and wind-blown shopping carts. A few zombies were wandering about. Some were gnawing at the bones of the dead. A little child was down on her knees in the center of the lot, gnawing at the head of a kitten. As he drove up close to the Super Saver's side door, he got out quickly, with his key ready, the truck locked, the shotgun on his shoulder, and a tire tool on his belt. He had, days after it all came down, finished off the walking dead in the supermarket with his shotgun, and pulled their bodies out for the ones outside to feast on. While this went on, he found the electronic lock for the sliding plexiglass doors, and he located the common doors at the side and back, and found their keys. With the store sealed, he knew he could come in smaller doors whenever he wanted, shop for canned and dried goods. The electricity was still working then, but in time he feared it might go out, so he decided the best way to go was to start with the meats and fresh vegetables. They lasted for about 6 weeks, and then, for whatever reason, the electricity died. It may have been attrition of power, or a terrific storm, though not nearly as terrific as the one Ella and Tina had described, the one that had changed things. But something killed the electricity. He managed to get a lot of meat out before then, and he tossed a lot away to keep it from rotting in the store, making the place stink. By then, he had a freezer and a smaller refrigerator, both hooked to gas generators he had taken from the store. And by siphoning the gas from cars, he had been able to keep it running. He also worked out a way to maintain electricity by supplanting the gas-powered generators with car batteries that he wired up and used until they died. Then he got others, fresh ones from the car parts house. He didn't know how long that supply would last. Someday he feared he would be completely in the dark when night fell, so he made a point of picking up candles each time he went to the store. He had hundreds of them by now, big fat old ones, and plenty of matches. The weather was cool, so he decided on canned chili and crackers. There was plenty of food in the store, as most of the town had seen the storm and been afflicted by it, and had immediately gone into zombie mode. For them, it was no more cheese and crackers, salads with dressing on the side. Now it was hot, fresh meat, and cold dead meat rotting on the bone. As he cruised the aisle, he saw a rack with bags of jerky on it. He hadn't had jerky in ages. He grabbed bags of it and threw them in the cart. He found a 12-pack of bottled beer and put that in the cart too. He was there for about 6 hours, just wondering, thinking. He used the restrooms, which still flushed. He had the same luxury at his house, and he could have waited, but the whole trip, the food, walking the aisles, using the toilet, it was akin to a vacation. After a while, he went to the section of the store that contained the decorations. He filled another basket with strings of lights, and even located a medium-sized plastic tree, Christmas tree. 3 baskets were eventually filled, one with plastic tree precautiously placed on top. He found a Santa hat, said, "What the hell?" and put it on. He pushed all 3 baskets near the door he had come in. He slung the shotgun off his shoulder and took a deep breath. He hated this part. He never knew what was behind the door. The automatic doors would have been better in this regard, as they were hard plastic and you could see through them. But the problem was, if you went out that way, you left the automatic door working, and they could come and go inside as they pleased. He liked the store to be his sanctuary, just like the pawn shop downtown, the huge car parts store, and a number of other places he had rigged with locks and hidden weapons. He stuck the key in the door and heard it snick. He opened it quickly. They weren't right at the door, but they were all around his truck. He got behind one of the baskets and pushed it out, leaving the door behind him open. It was chancy, as one of them might sleep inside unseen, even be waiting a week or 2 later when he came back. But it was a chance he had to take. Pushing the basket hard, he rushed out in the lot and to the back of the truck. He had to pause to open up with the shotgun. He dropped 4 of them, then realized he was out of firepower. For the first time in ages, he had forgot to check the loads of the gun. His last trek out, a trip to the pawn shop, had used most of them, and he hadn't reloaded. He couldn't believe it. He was slipping, and you couldn't slip. Not in this world. He pulled the .38 revolver and popped off a shot. Missed. 2 were closing. He stuck the revolver back in his belt, grabbed a handful of goodies from the basket, and tossed them into the back of the pickup. When he looked up, 4 were closing and down on the way. Stumbling over the parking lot were most of them. A lot of them, in that moment. All he could think of was, at least they're slow. He pulled the .38 again, but one of them came out of nowhere, grabbed him by the throat. He whacked at the arm with the revolver, snapped it off at the shoulder, leaving the hand still gripping him. The zombie, minus an arm, lunged towards him, snapping his teeth, filling the air with his foul stench. At close range, he didn't miss with the revolver, got armless right between the eyes. He jerked the arm free of his neck, moved forward quickly, and using the pistol as a club, which for him was more precise, he knocked 2 down, crushing one skull and finishing off the other with a close skull shot. A careful shot dropped another. He looked to see how fast the other zombies were coming. Not that fast. They were just halfway across the lot. There was one more zombie near the front of his truck. It had circled the vehicle while he was fighting the others. He hadn't even seen where it came from. He watched it as he finished unloading the car. When it was close, he shot it at near point-blank range, causing its rotten skull to explode like a pumpkin, spewing what appeared to be boiled, dirty oatmeal all over the side of his truck in the parking lot. Darting back inside, he managed to push one cart out and then shoved the other one after it. He grabbed the handles of the carts, one in each hand, and guided them to the back of the truck. The zombies were near now. One of them, for some reason, was holding his hand high above his head, as if in greeting. Calvin was tempted to wave. Calvin tossed everything in the back of the truck and was dismayed to hear a bulb or 2 from a string of bulbs pop. The last thing he tossed in the back was the Christmas tree. He was behind the wheel and backing around even before the zombies arrived. He drove towards them, hit 2 and crunched them down. as if it mattered. As he wheeled out of the lot, he tossed up his hand in a one-finger salute. Drinking water before continuing. Cheers. By the way, Anonymous, thank you so much for the tip. I have them deactivated for noise reasons, but yeah, it's a 5 a.m. stream. Okay, continuing on. They were so pretty, Ella had said about the lightning flashes. She had awakened him as he lay snoozing on the couch. They were red and yellow and green and blue and all kinds of colors, Tina said. Come on, Daddy, come see. By the time he was there, the strange lightning storm was gone. There was only the rain. It had come out of nowhere, caused by who knew what. Even the rain came down and went quickly. A storm that covered the earth, briefly flashed lights, spit rain, and departed. When the rain stopped, the people who had observed the colored lightning died, just keeled over, Ella and Tina among them. They dropped over right in the living room on Christmas Eve, just before presents were to be opened. It made no sense, but that's what happened. Then, even as he tried to revive them, they rose. Immediately, he knew they weren't right. It didn't take a wizard to realize that. They came at him, snarling, long strings of mucus flipping from their mouths like rabid dog saliva. They tried to bite him. He pushed them back. He called their names. He yelled. He pleaded. But still they came, biting and snapping. He stuck a couch cushion in Ella's mouth. She grabbed it and ripped it. Stuffing flew like a snowstorm, and he ran. He hid in the bedroom, locked the door, not wanting to hurt them. He heard the others, his neighbors outside, roaming around the house. He looked out the window. There were people all over the backyard, fighting with one another. Some of them living, trying to survive, going down beneath teeth and nails. People like him, who for some reason had not seen the weird storm. But the rest were all dead, like his wife and daughter. The lights of the storm had stuck something behind their eyes that killed them and brought them back. Dead, but walking and hungry. Ella and Tina pounded on his bedroom door with the intensity of a drum solo. Bam, 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 bam. He sat on the bed for an hour. His hands over his ears, tears streaming down his face, listening to his family banging the door, hearing the world outside coming apart. He took a deep breath, got the shotgun out of the closet, made sure it was loaded, opened the bedroom door. It was funny, but I could still remember thinking as they went through the doorway, "Here's my gift to you. Merry Christmas, family. I love you." And then 2 shots. Later, when things had settled, he had managed, even in the midst of a zombie takeover, to take their bodies to the dumpster, pour gas on them, and dispose of them as best as he could. Months later, from time to time, he would awaken, the smell of their burning flesh and the odor of gasoline in his nostrils. Later, one post at a time, fighting off zombies as he worked, he built his compound to keep them out, to give him a yard, a bit of normalcy. Calvin looked in the rearview mirror. His forehead was beaded with sweat. He was still wearing the Santa hat. The snowball on his tip had fallen onto the side of his face. He flipped it back, kept driving. He was almost home when he saw the dog and saw them chasing it. The dog was skinny, near-starved, black and white spotted. Probably some kind of hound mix. It was running all around, and it was nearing dark. The pace of the zombies had picked up. By deep nightfall, they would be able to move much faster. That dog was dead meat. The dog cut out into the road in front of him, and he braked. Of the 4 zombies chasing the dog, only one of them stopped to look at him. The other 3 ran on. Calvin said, "Eat, Bumper," cast the truck into the zombie who had stopped to stare, knocking it under the pickup. He could hear it dragging underneath as it drove. The other zombies were chasing the dog down the street, gaining on it. It ran with its tongue hanging long. The dog swerved off the road and jetted between the houses. The zombies ran after it. Calvin started to let it go. It wasn't his problem. But as if without a thought, he wheeled the truck off the road and across the yard. He caught one of the zombies, a fat, slow one that most likely had been fat and slow in life. He bounced the truck over and it bore down the other 2. One heard the motor, turned to look, and was scooped under the bumper so fast it looked like a magic act disappearance. The other didn't seem to notice him at all. It was so intent on its canine lunch. Calvin hit it with a truck, knocked it against the side of a house, pinned it there, gassed the truck until it snapped in 2 and the house warped under the pressure. Calvin backed off, fearing he might have damaged the engine, but the truck still ran. He looked. The dog was standing between 2 houses, panting, its pink tongue hanging out of his mouth like a bright power tie. Wait, what? A bright power tie. Brick? Yeah, bright power tie. Opening the door, Calvin called to the dog. The dog didn't move, but its ears sprang up. "Come on, boy. Girl, come on, doggy." The dog didn't move. Calvin looked over his shoulder. Zombies were starting to appear everywhere. They were far enough away he could make an escape, but close enough to be concerned. And then he saw the plastic Christmas tree had been knocked out of the back of the pickup. He ran over, picked it up, tossed it in the bed. He looked at his dog. "It's now or never, pup," Calvin said. "Come on, I'm not one of them." It appeared the dog understood completely. It came towards him, tail wagging. Calvin bent down, carefully extended his hand towards it. He patted it on the head. His tail went crazy. The dog had a collar on. There was a little aluminium tag in the shape of bone around his neck. He took it between thumb and forefinger. The dog's name was stenciled on it. Buffy. Looking back at the zombies coming across the yard in near formation, Calvin spoke to the dog. "Come on, Buffy, go with me." He stepped back, one hand on the open door. The dog sprang past him into the seat. Calvin climbed in, backed around, and they were out of there, slamming zombies right and left as the truck broke their lines. As he neared his house, the sun was starting to dip. The sky was purple as a hammered plum. Behind him, in the mirror, he could see zombies coming from all over, between houses, out of houses, down the road, moving swiftly. He gave the truck gas, and then the tire blew. The truck's rear end skidded hard left, almost spun, but Calvin fought the wheel and righted it. It bumped along, and he was forced to slow down to what seemed like near crawl. In the rear view, he could see the dead gaining, a sea of teeth and putrid faces. He glanced at the dog. It was staring out the back window as well, a look of concern on his face. "I shouldn't have stopped for you," Calvin said, and in an instant he thought, if I opened the door and kicked you out, that might slow them down. They might stop and fight over a hot lunch." It was a fleeting thought. "You go, I go," Calvin said, as if he had owned the dog for years, as if it were a part of his family. He kept driving, bumping the pickup along. When he arrived at his house, He didn't have time to back in, as usual. He hit the garage remote and drove the truck inside. When he got out, Buffy clamoring out behind him. The zombies were in the garage, maybe 10 of them. Others in the near distance were moving faster and faster towards him. Calvin touched the remote, closed the gate door, trapping himself and the dog inside with those 10, but keeping the others out. He tossed the remote on the hood of the pickup, pulled the pistol, and used what ammunition was left. A few of them were hit in the head and dropped. He jammed the empty pistol in his belt, pulled the tire iron free, began to swing it, cracking heads with the blows. He heard growling and ripping, turned to see Buffy had taken one down and was tearing its throat out, pulling its near-rotten head off his shoulders. "Good dog, Buffy," Calvin yelled, and swung the iron. "Sick 'em." They came over the roof of the truck. One of them, a woman, leaped on him and knocked him face down, sent his tire iron flying. She went rolling into the wall, but was up quickly and moving towards him. He knew this was it. He sensed another one close on him, and then another, and then he heard the dog bark, growl. Calvin managed to turn his head slightly as Buffy leaped and hit one above him, knocking her down. It wasn't much, but it allowed Calvin to scramble to his feet, start swinging the tire iron. Left and right he swung with all his might. They came for him, closer. He backed up, Buffy beside him, their asses against the wall, the zombies in front of him. There were 3 of the dead left. They came like bullets. Calvin breathed hard. He grabbed the tire iron off the garage floor, swung it as quickly and as firmly as he could manage, dodging in between them, not making a kill shot, just knocking them aside, finally dashing for the truck, with Buffy at his heels. Calvin and Buffy jumped inside, and Calvin slammed the door and locked it. The zombie slammed against the door and the window, but it held. Calvin got a box of 38 shells out of the glove box, pulled a revolver from his belt and loaded it. He took a deep breath. He looked out the driver's side window where one of the zombies, maybe male, maybe female, too far gone to tell, tried to chew the glass. When he had driven inside, he had inadvertently killed the engine. He reached and twisted the key, started it up. Then he pushed back against Buffy until they were as close as to the other door as possible. Then he used his toe to roll down the glass where the zombie snashed. As the window dropped, its head dipped inward and its teeth snapped in the air. The revolver barked, knocking a hole in the zombie's head, spurting a gusher of goo, causing it to spin and drop as if practically a ballet move. Another showed his face in the open window and got the same reception, a 38 slug. Calvin twisted in his seat and looked at the other window. Nothing. Where was the last one? He eased into the middle, pulled the dog beside him. As he held the dog, he could feel it shivering. Damn, what a dog. Terrified and still a fighter. No quitter was she. A hand darted through the open window, tried to grab him, snatched off his Santa hat. He spun around to shoot. The zombie's arms struck the pistol, sent it flying. It grabbed him. It had him now, and this one, fresher than the others, was strong. It pulled him towards the windows, towards snapping, jagged teeth. Buffy leaped. It was a tight fit between Calvin and the window, but the starved dog made it. Hit the zombie full in the face and slammed it backward. Buffy fell out the window after it. Calvin found the pistol, jumped out of the car. The creature had grabbed Buffy by the throat, had spun her around on her back, and was hastily dropping its head for the bite. Calvin fired. The gun took off the top of the thing's head. It let go of Buffy. It stood up, stared at him, made 2 quick steps towards him, and dropped. "You done good. Damn. You done good. It's alright. It's alright, girl. It's alright." Wait. I read something after. Wait. Calvin fired. The gun took off the top-stitching head. It let go of Buffy. It stood up, stared at him, made two quick steps toward him and dropped. Ah, there you go. The dog charged to Calvin's side, growling. "It's all right, girl. It's all right. You done good. Damn, you done good." Calvin got the tire iron and went around and carefully bashed in all the heads of the zombies, just for insurance. Tomorrow, he'd change the tire on the truck, probably blown out from running over zombies. He'd put his spare tire on it, the donut tire. Donut? Donut tire? Drive to the tire store and find 4 brand new ones and put them on. Tomorrow he'd get rid of the zombie bodies. Tomorrow he'd do a lot of things. But not tonight. He found the Santa hat and put it back on. Tonight, he had other plans. Oh, a donut is a spare tire? Okay, thank you. Okay. First, he gave Buffy a package of jerky. She ate it like the starving animal she was. He got a bowl out of the shelf and filled it with water. "From now on, that's your bowl, girl. Tomorrow, maybe the next day, I'll find you some canned dog food at the store." He got another bowl and opened a can of chili and poured it into the bowl. He was most likely overfeeding her. She'd probably throw it up. But that was all right. He would clean it up. And tomorrow, they'd start over, more carefully. But tonight, Buffy had earned a special treat. He went out and got the tree out of the truck and put it up, and put ornaments on it from 2 years back. Ornaments he had left on the floor after throwing the old dead and dried tree over the fence. This plastic one was smaller, but it would last, year after year. He sat down under the tree and found the presents he had for his wife and child. He pushed them aside, leaving them wrapped. He opened those they had given him 2 Christmases ago. He liked all of them, the socks, the underwear, the ties he would never wear, DVDs of movies he loved and would watch, sitting on the couch with Buffy, who he would soon make fat. He sat for a long time and looked at his presents and cried. Using the porch light for illumination, inside the fenced-in yard, he set about putting up the decorations. Outside the fence, the zombies grabbed at it and rattled it and tugged. But it held. It was a good fence, a damn good fence. He believed in that tediously built fence, and the zombies weren't good climbers. They got off the ground, but it was like some of them made an animated slid out of them in invisible floods. It was as if they gained their living dead status from Earth itself. It was a long job, and when he finished climbing the ladder, stapling up the lights, making sure the Santa and snowmen were in their places, he went inside and plugged it all in. When he came outside, the yard was lit in colors of red and blue and green. The Santa and the snowmen glowed as if they had swallowed lightning. Buffy stood beside him, wagging her tail as they examined the handiwork. Then Calvin realized something. It had grown very quiet. The fence was no longer being shaken or pulled. He turned quickly towards where the zombies stood outside the fence. They weren't holding on to the wire anymore. They weren't moaning. They weren't doing anything except looking, heads lifted, towards the lights. Out there in the shadows, the lights barely touching them with a fringe of color. They looked like happy and surprised children. "They like it," Calvin said, and looked down at Buffy. She looked up at him, wagging her tail. "Merry Christmas, dog." When he glanced up, he saw a strange thing. One of the zombies, a woman, a barefoot woman, wearing shorts and a t-shirt. A young woman, maybe even a nice-looking woman not so long ago, lifted her arm and pointed at the lights and smiled with dark, rotting teeth. Then there came a sound from all of them, like a contented sigh. "I'll be damned," Calvin said. "They like it." He thought, "I will win. I will wait them out. They will all fall apart someday soon. But tonight, they are here with us to share the lights. They are our company. He got beer from inside, came back out, and pulled up a lawn chair and sat down. Buffy lay down beside him. He was tempted to give those poor son of a bitches outside the wire a few strips of jerky instead. Instead, he sipped his beer. A tear ran down his face as he yelled towards the dead. "Merry Christmas, you monsters! Merry Christmas to all of you! And to all, a good night." And that was Christmas with the Dead. God damn, that was quite wholesome. I liked that. I got really into this one. Jeez, what the freak? Yeah, this one was nice. It was, sorry, I'm speaking too loud. I forget, I haven't done ASMR microphone things in a while. This one was written by Joe R. Lansdale. If you guys want to check out his other work. It's an actual book, it seems. So, yeah, that was really good. I liked it. God damn. Got invested. Edgy but also wholesome, yeah. By the way, nobody asked, but in my brain, I imagined the guy looking like Hopper from Stranger Things. or, you know, the Santa from the movie we watched recently in the Discord. You too? Let's go. Yeah. I wonder why nobody asked what the dog doing. I was gonna say I see this guy as Hop. Yep. That was great. I enjoyed that a lot. Yeah, that was really nice. Oh, my heart. Oh, wee. Frick, I need a moment after that. I'm gonna drink some water. Cheers. Yeah. So, Lucky Charms. I think I can still tell one more. But, I can't make the stream very long because my parents are gonna end up waking up and making tons of noise. But I think this one's been the highlight. Holy frick. I really liked it. I really liked it. Okay. So, as for the last one. I mean, I guess it depends on how long it is. Let's see. I think I put too many stories in this. I have too many stories in this book. Okay. Let me see. Maybe this one. This one looks like a fun little flick as well. But this one is a creepypasta. I have others that were books. But they are longer. They're longer. Yeah. This is good, and the delivery was perfect. Yeah, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Dude, Viking Santa against a horde of zombies with Mrs. Claus showing up at the pinnacle moment to give him his hammer when he needs it most would have been an epic movie. Alright. When in doubt, there are tons of Lovecraft short ones. Oh, the problem was not finding horror stories. The problem was finding horror Christmas-themed stories, you know? I didn't want to just rely on creepypastas. Like, this one was not a creepypasta. But yeah. Okay. Let's see. Maybe this one. Yeah, maybe this one. I think this one is shorter. Maybe we have time for like 2 more. Yeah. Okay. I don't have this one. This is a creepypasta. It might, but I'm not sure. Okay, so I have the two last stories I want to tell. So the next one is called Carol's Christmas Cookies, and I think it was written by Penny Tailsup, but actually let me check. It seems like it. Yes, Penny Tailsup, and she has a blog, and it looks really cool. There's a lot of stories here. She seems to be a writer. It's gonna be my first time reading a story from her as well. But this website, man, it reminds me of really like old websites I used to browse with horror content when I was younger. This was posted in 2019. Okay, it's in a blog post, and yeah, let's go ahead and I'll read it to you. Yes. I mean, blog post, it's in this book right here. I printed it. Yeah. So, for our third story of today, Carol's Christmas Cookies. Today was the annual holiday potluck. My office doesn't really do parties, but every occasion gets a potluck. It's business, as usual, except everyone brings food. We work while stuffing ourselves silly. Nothing like working through a stomachache, right? It's always a game of food poisoning roulette. Since I was the first one in, I was expected to do the basic setup. Dutifully, I cleared off the sorting table and got the coffee going. I expected to spend the first 30 minutes of my shift in peace, but it wasn't to be. The phone started to ring. It's too early for this, I thought. I answered anyway, putting on my best customer service voice. At this hour, most customers hadn't had their coffee yet, so answering the phone was a crapshoot. Fortunately, it was only Carol. Thank God you answered. Can you let me in? My arms are full. She always brought enough baked goods for everyone to have seconds and thirds. It was one of the few things I looked forward to. I'll be right over. Hold on. I hung up and hurried over to the employee entrance. I yanked open the door and found Carol standing there with a heaping stack of Tupperware in her arms. The scent of gingerbread hung around like a warm Christmas perfume, sweet and inviting. Let me help you with that. You tried to get it all in one trip, huh? I carefully grabbed a few of the containers, making sure not to tip them over and walking with her inside. Carol smiled appreciatively, relieved she could finally set everything down. I took a peek at the goodies. As expected, gingerbread cookies, gingerbread office workers, each one bigger than my hand and intricately detailed. What do you think? She asked, puffing out her chest with pride. I made one for everyone in the office. After I passed these out, I'm out of here though. I'm not working today, but I wanted to make sure everyone got theirs. Wow, I admired her handiwork. It only took me a moment to realize that the gingerbread cookies were modeled after our co-workers. I looked eagerly for the one she'd made for me, but I didn't see one. These must have taken forever to make. The details are perfect. No one can top these. Suddenly my crock pot of meatballs seemed a lot less exciting. Oh well, it wasn't a competition. As if I could beat Carol's Christmas cookies. Title drop. By then, my phone started to ring, so I hurried back to my desk. I watched Carol pass out her cookies with care, placing them on desks atop pretty poinsettia plates. Are you gonna be open on Christmas? The customer asked the second I picked up. No. Wait, what? Are you gonna be open on Christmas? The customer asked the second I picked up. No hello, only a shrill inquiry. No, but we will be open as usual on the 26th, I answered. What do you mean you won't be open on Christmas? What if I need help right now? I'll have to wait. I gave my scripted answer to the angry customer, distracted and deadpan. By the time the call was done, Carol came over with a smile, bringing the very last cookie over to me. Oh, I'd say this is too pretty to eat. Except he was never really a looker, was he? She said. I looked down at the gingerbread man. It wasn't me. It was our boss, Dale. This one's mine? I asked tentatively, definitely confused. Maybe there was a mistake. Of course. How many opportunities do you get to bite your own boss's head off? I wanted to give you the honor. If Carol sensed my disappointment, she didn't let on. I looked down at the cookie again, a dense gingerbread man in a cheap suit. Even though the suit had been made with glaze and frosting, it had that impression. Cheap, ill-fitting, and grey. A perfect replica of one of his two suits with a garish Christmas tie. As long as it doesn't taste like Dale, I laughed. To be honest, as perfectly made as the cookie was, I didn't find it appetizing. Well, I did. It smelled amazing, but there was something off-putting about eating a cookie shaped like someone else, especially Dale. Then again, it would be just as weird to eat one that looked like me. Cookie cannibalism. You didn't give him one that looks like me, right? I shuddered. Now that would be creepy. Dale was a real piece of work, but I had to tolerate him if I wanted to keep my job. Of course not, Carol assured. Could you do me a favor? Wait until everyone gets in before you eat it. I want everyone to see. I wish I could see the looks on their faces. You'll tell me, won't you? Sure. I slid the gingerbread away from me. To be honest, I wasn't sure if I was gonna eat it or not, but I didn't want to hurt her feelings. Sorry. Maybe if I scraped off the decorations first? That seemed equally rude though. When you eat gingerbread cookies, are you the kind of person to go for the head or the arms and legs first? Or maybe you'll pull out the decorations one by one? She asked suddenly. Carol wasn't looking at me when she asked. She was looking towards Dale's office. What a weird question, especially coming from her. When she saw the look on my face, Carol laughed and petted my shoulder. Sorry, I was just having a funny thought. There's a little sadist in everyone, isn't there? I'm kind of scared of where this is going. Excuse me? Grabbing her empty Tupperware, Carol gave me a wink and wished a Merry Christmas. She left, leaving me alone in the office. I kept eyeing the gingerbread Dale, still feeling a bit weird about it. Weird, but also hungry. The cookies smelled divine, which was odd, considering I'd never been a huge fan of gingerbread. About 10 minutes later, the rest of my co-workers trickled in. They complained about how tired they were. Morning traffic and the holidays. Of course, the belly aching became exclamations of delight when they discovered the cookies set neatly on their desks. Everyone started showing one another their cookies and taking pictures, marveling at the perfect detail. Patty's cookie had her trademark beehive updo and pearls. Mark's cookie was bearded with squared glasses. Beats had electric blue eyeshadow and dimples. Though the outfits weren't an exact match, the resemblances were uncanny. Eventually, the clamor died down and everyone sat at their desks, all except Patty, who scurried over to my desk with a wide smile. "I didn't see yours," she said, showing me hers for the second time. She carried her plate proudly in both hands, like she was presenting a piece of art. To be fair, Carol's work really was exquisite. I just didn't like Patty. Patty's eyes moved to the plate. I'd sat away from me. My cookie wasn't like everyone else's, which suddenly seemed like a problem. "Oh, it looks like Dale. Is it yours?" She scrunched her face at me, somehow managing to keep the smile. I didn't like her insinuation. "Yeah, it's mine." Did she really think I'd scarfed down my cookie and stole another one from the boss's desk? Really? Why doesn't it look like you then? Ah, yes, the insinuation was still there. A bitter anger spread across my tongue, but I fought to keep my voice level and my face flat. It was weird that I was the only one with a cookie that looked like someone else, but I didn't make them. It wasn't up to me. Carol thought it would be funny, that's all. Carol? But wasn't she fired yesterday? Patty's expression scrunched up even more. Her hands moved up to her pearls, fidgeting with the long strand. Sometimes I wondered if she wore pearls just so she could clutch them. No? Wouldn't a memo have gone out if she was? I turned my attention back to my work. I hoped Patty would get the hint and go away, but she just stood there for a long moment, sucking in a deep, dramatic breath. She picked her plate off my desk, staring hard at the gingerbread patty. "Didn't you make these?" she asked slowly. "No, I brought the meatballs. Why would you think I made them?" I answered, not looking up. I pretended to read an email. Patty was being nosy as usual. I never liked that about her. She didn't have anything better to do, I guess, except for the work she let pile up. But if I said that, she'd complain to Dale. Patty was his favorite for some reason, so I'd probably get written up for not being a team player. Like a lot of offices around the world, this one was toxic. "I'm not sure if this is okay. I'll be right back," Patty said, unaware of my rude thoughts. I looked up when she said that, unable to help myself. She didn't explain, pivoting towards Dale's office. To tell on me? On Carol? I honestly wasn't sure. Either way, it was a headache for me. She reappeared in the doorway with Dale a moment later. They both made a beeline straight for my desk, their expressions a lot more serious than a cookie called for. Great. I pretended not to notice, busying myself with a stack of fresh paperwork. Before they reached me, there was a loud, cracking sound and a scream. Every head in the room whipped in the direction of the sound to find Robert tears running down his face. All I could see was his eyes poking out from his workstation, expression twisted and red. "My arm!" he screamed. "Oh my God, it won't move!" A couple co-workers ran over to see what happened. I reached for my phone instead, ready to call 911 if an ambulance was needed. Patty and Dale changed course, but everyone looked confused. How on earth had Robert hurt his arm while sitting at his desk? Carpal tunnel? "Now's your chance," came an errant thought. My eyes slid towards the gingerbread Dale. It looked perfectly palatable on that pretty poinsettia plate. "Hurry, before they confiscate it." Now wasn't the time to worry about cookies, but my tongue tingled with anticipation, and my teeth inched with the urge. Damn, my tummy's going growl because I ate my breakfast too fast. Just one small bite. I think I want one of these cookies. Just one small bite. The thought was strange, almost like it wasn't mine, but very compelling. The gingerbread man was heavier than I expected. I lifted it to my lips and bit off one of the feet. It crunched in stereo, unusually loud as the foot snapped off and began to melt on my tongue. Delicious. A rush of delight washed over me, brought on by a flood of flavor that drowned out Dale's cursing screams. He'd fallen, rocking back and forth on the floor. He must have twisted his ankle in his haste to check on Robert. How unlucky. 2 injuries in one day? A chorus of "oh my gods" ran through the office, but I set down my phone so I could hold the gingerbread Dale with both hands. Without even thinking, I took another bite, nibbling up the leg, before switching to the other foot. The screaming kept getting louder, filling up the room. This girl's a sadist, oh my god. The gingerbread had such a rich and complex flavor. Ginger, cinnamon, allspice cloves, and something else. Was it earthy? Or maybe it was the texture. Soft and velvety, yet dense and crunchy. Wow, so much screaming, all over carpal tunnel and a sprained ankle. Annoyed, I glanced around the room to find that almost everyone was screaming. The ones who weren't screaming were chewing with blissed out looks on their bloody faces, or slumped over their desks. Confused, I touched my own wet mouth and looked down at my red fingers. I wasn't in any pain. Had Carol put glass in the batter or something? Where was the blood coming from? Why was everyone still eating? Because they can't help themselves. I couldn't help myself either. Without realizing it, I'd eaten half of Dale's cookie and found myself going in for another bite. Horrified, I dropped the cookie, the gingerbread snapping in half as it hit the floor. Okay, that's... Dale, curled up on the carpet, was suddenly still and quiet. Patty was right next to him on the floor, but she didn't seem to notice, chewing frantically with glazed eyes, gingerbread crumbs and blood running down her chin. Only when her mouth was empty did she resume screaming again. She rolled and started eating her cookie off the carpet. The spell the cookie cast on me had broken with my boss's pie. He was dead, and with each quieted scream, a co-worker joined him in death. I was the last one standing, the last one screaming. Soon, I was standing in perfect silence. No more screams, no more chewing. Only then was I able to move. I grabbed my keys and ran out of the office. Maybe I should have called the police. I didn't know what I was gonna tell them. That Carol's Christmas cookies had killed everyone but me? That I chewed my boss to death with a voodoo gingerbread man? I couldn't come up with a logical explanation in my state of pure panic. Even though my voice had broken, my thoughts kept screaming. I ran the snowy parking lot and found my car. I'm not sure why I ran. No one was chasing me. There was no one who could. Before I could jump into my car and drive away, I noticed a little red gift bag sitting on the hood of my car. Across the front, written in glitter, were the words, "Merry Christmas from Carol." I was terrified, but looked inside the bag anyway. As I feared, there was a cookie. My heart thudded in terror, but I felt compelled to examine it. In spite of my dread, I started to salivate, clenching my teeth together. Even after what I witnessed, I wanted to eat it. The cookie wasn't me. It was Carol. Carol, down to the outfit she'd worn that very morning, except for the "sorry" piped across her sweater in red. I swallowed the bloody spit in my mouth, reached back into the gift bag. There was a Christmas card inside. Still holding onto the gingerbread Carol, I opened it. A key was taped to the glitter cardstock, along with a simple message. "Merry Christmas. There's a gingerbread office in my apartment. If you smash it, everyone will think the roof collapsed. That should explain all the broken bones. Don't worry, no one will find me. P.S. You were always kind to me, That's why I spared you. I hope you'll do me one more kindness and make it quick. Love, Carol. I closed the card, tucking it back in its envelope and sitting in my car. I looked down at the cookie still in my hand. My tongue tingled. My teeth itched. I didn't want to do it, but I had to. I bit off Carol's gingerbread head. It tasted like gingerbread and death. Lucky Charms, this is why kindness is cool. Isn't this? This is why kindness is cool, okay? You don't want your coworker who hates you to make a gingerbread cookie of yourself. A voodoo gingerbread doll. Oh god. Wait, if the other coworkers got voodoo cookies of themselves, does that count as self-war? I don't think it counts as war, because like they're not eating people technically, right? Note to self, never fire Carol. I like that. Sorry, oh my god. I'm sorry, I don't want to hurt your ears. I like that a lot. That was it was interesting. I kind of knew where that was going halfway through. I wasn't sure like how it was gonna end. I thought it was gonna end like, oh, she just walks away and then boom, the story is over. But I liked the little detail with the note at the end, and like she has a whole plan for her main character to not get blamed. So yeah, I liked it. Felt satisfying. Yes. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. I liked it, even though it was quite predictable. Yes. I need to check out the other stories from this person. They're nice. Penny Tail Soap. Very good. So, did you guys like that one? It was fun. It was funny. It was quite funny, yes. Alright, so I've got one more spooky Christmas story. Okay? So I'm gonna go read this one, and we're gonna end it up with a creepypasta. Okay? We started with a creepypasta. We went on to reading an actual like digital book, then a blog post, and now we're going back to a creepypasta. Okay? So yes. This one, I think I played a game once that had the same name, but I doubt they are related. This one is called Santa Claus, as in like claws, like claws. You know, claws. Scratch. The claw. Yes. So yeah, this one was written by Mormos Changer, and this one is from, you're not gonna believe it, 2013. Much simpler times, huh? Alright, so let's go ahead and I'll read you our last story of today, Santa Claus. Actually, when did the other stories come out? Christmas of the Dead is from... Wait, it doesn't say here. Oh damn. Christmas of the Dead doesn't say. Christmas with the Dead. But the other one does. The Smee is from... Oh, it doesn't say either. Damn. Never mind. Okay. So anyways, last Last story of today. Santa Claus. Claus, Claus, Claus. Okay. Gonna drink some water before, actually. Cheers. Santa Claus. For most children, Christmas is a celebration worth looking forward to. For a 13-year-old even, it was something to fear. Even still remembered his 7th Christmas Eve clearly, an evening that he, like most children, had been looking forward to for a very long time. The next morning, he would get up early and open all his presents, eager to see what surprises Santa had left him. Even imagined the restless night ahead and thought, if he listened hard, he might be able to hear Santa come down the chimney. But this Christmas Eve, didn't all go to plan. It wasn't long before Evan's excitement gave way to horror. Mom had insisted that Santa wouldn't come even if Evan stayed up late, and she had just begun sending him off to bed when Evan was distracted by a loud, muffled thump on the roof. It seemed to be coming directly above the fireplace. It was like in the night before Christmas. There arose such a clatter, and Evan approached the chimney to see what was the matter. Was it now that Santa had decided to make an appearance? Ash was falling from the nooks and crannies of the chimney to the bottom of the fireplace, sending out charcoal, smoke, and a burnt smell. Someone had to be disturbing the ash. Evan was alone. Who else went down the chimney at this time on Christmas Eve? The chimney rattled, and a deep, rolling voice hit the air. Santa's famous "Ho, ho, ho" echoed down the chimney as Evan watched in the light. Things were silent for a moment. Evan's mother stood behind him, watching. Then arose the biggest clatter yet. There was an explosion of grayish smoke, and mountains of ash fell to the bottom of the fireplace. The fireplace shook as if there was a sudden earthquake. Then amidst the grayness, there was a flash of red and a tremendous thump. Had Santa made it? Evan rushed forward, unable to stop himself. He felt a flare of excitement, but Mom was first to the chimney. Evan tried to remember the last time his mother had expressed excitement, but couldn't. Then the smoke cleared, and the fallen Santa came into view. He didn't have quite the belly Evan had expected, but this was the least of his observations. Evan gasped as he saw that Santa's beard had appeared to slide off during his fall. But there was no blood. The only blood came from Santa's head, and it was just a trickle. The bad thing wasn't that the trickle of blood was coming from... the bad thing was that the trickle of blood was coming from what looked like a big dent in Santa's head. Evan frowned. Santa couldn't die. He was too good for that. He couldn't die. Not now. So had someone played a trick on him? Evan glanced at the beard that had appeared to slide down Santa's face. Beards didn't move like that, at least not without there being blood. So then, if it wasn't a real beard, it had to be a fake one. But if that was a fake beard, then Santa's suit was also a fake suit. It wasn't the real Santa. This was a Santa in disguise. Even glanced once more at the fake Santa's exposed features, trying to figure out who this person could be, and made sense of the face that seemed so familiar to him. He realized for the first time that Mom had never been excited. Instead, she had rushed to the fake Santa's body in grief. Sobs racked with her body, her tears dripping on the fake Santa's suit. Even stood dumbfounded and choked out one word. Dad? Even woke up in a cold sweat. Bolting upright into a sitting position, he glanced at his watch and read the time. 2:19 a.m. Before the light on his watch went off, he read the date, December 20th. Only 5 more days until Christmas. Once upon a time, Even would have been happy about this, but now he wished that Christmas never came. It was the same dream again, accurate in every detail. That evening was exactly how it had been in a dream. It never ceased to amaze Even how vivid these dreams were. They got read down to the core and forced Even to relive the worst moment of his life. Those goddamn nightmares. They got worse around Christmas. He would dream of that fateful evening his dad slipped and fell down the chimney, smashing his skull on the way down. Or he would dream of those claws, those razor-sharp strips of polished bone, weapons that could slice through him like butter if they gave so much as a flick. Most kids grew out of their Santa belief, came to accept that Santa was just another myth made to make children happy. But Even hadn't grown out of it. He had been jolted out of it, his belief shattered with the tragic death of his father. Even's father had only been trying to surprise Even, but he had done much more than that. He had bent Even beyond repair, and every Christmas, Santa Claus would haunt Even. Even was convinced Santa Claus was some kind of demon in humanoid form. He was definitely not human. He was a supernatural entity of sorts, but Even had always thought of him as a demon. Santa Claus had been in Even's life ever since his father died, and though he was mostly absent during the year, he would come back around November, maybe late October, when it became nearer to Christmas. Well, he would become even more persistent then. There were nightmares, for one thing, and the visions, and Even had no shortage of seizures around Christmas time. When Santa Claus was at his worst, sometimes Even had panic attacks that seemed to come from nowhere, and there was no doubt who had caused them. Even was no stranger to bullying at school because of his seizures and his strong dislike for Christmas. Santa Claus had taken its toll on Even. Even knew that Santa Claus had, in some way, been triggered by his father's death. Sometimes Even believed that Santa Claus was actually his father's ghost, turned evil in the existence of the afterlife. Even wasn't one to believe in the supernatural, but Santa Claus had changed his mind about a lot of things. After a while, Even had been forced to accept that Santa Claus was always going to come back. Even if Even grew out of his own personal dislike for Christmas, he would never have a joyful Christmas again. It was Christmas that had caused his father's death. It was Christmas that had caused Santa Claus to come. Evan's head flopped back on his pillow. School had finished weeks before, but Evan was still dreading the next day, and every day to come until Christmas. What Evan was looking forward to was the absence of Santa Claus. Santa Claus would hang around for a bit after Christmas, then he'd slowly fade away. And Evan would be free of his presence between February and November. Then he could forget about Christmas, pretended it never existed. But no matter what, Santa Claus would always come back, and Evan was sure he would never be free of his demonic existence again. Evan woke up early and rolled out of bed, opening his laptop without bothering to draw the curtains or turn on the light. He wanted to go online, check his Facebook, play some games, do anything to take his mind off of Christmas, and more importantly, Santa Claus. It was an hour or two before Evan sat down to a lazy breakfast of cornflakes, by which time Evan's mother had gotten out of bed. Mom had shut herself out from society a while after she unexpectedly became a widow, developing a strong case of depression. Eventually, she had come to terms with her husband's death and became a more loving mother to Evan than ever, but she still had her bad days. Sometimes, Evan wondered whether Santa Claus was in her mind too. They both supported each other a lot, but Evan couldn't help but feel that the house was lonely every once in a while. Evan had told his mom about Santa Claus for the first years after his father's death, but then he had decided to pretend he had outgrown it. He didn't want to put extra weight on Mom's shoulders, and the last thing he wanted to do was to make it seem like he was still a child. But Evan couldn't hide the seizures. He couldn't hide the fact that he was sometimes absorbed in a hallucination after concerning Santa Claus. Evan's mom seemed to blame it on the trauma he had received after his father's death. Sure, maybe not all kids would experience that type of trauma, but everyone's different, aren't they? Evan said good morning to Mom and continued to eat his cornflakes. The fireplace was directly to his right, and Evan thought he could catch a glimpse of red out of the corner of his eyes. His head turned. Nothing. Paranoia. Or maybe Santa Claus was playing tricks on him. Either way, Evan didn't fancy seeing Santa Claus in the flesh. He had seen him already. 5 times, to be exact, and would see him a 6th time. For every Christmas Eve at 8:13 p.m., the exact time his father had fallen, he appeared in the fireplace, and Evan was always there to watch him make an appearance. It was then that Evan decided that this year he was gonna be prepared. It would be no different to any other year. Santa Claus would appear in the fireplace at exactly the same time as he had the year before, and the year before that, and the year before that. Mom was never around. She always went to bed early on Christmas Eve or stayed in bed the entire day. This time, Evan wouldn't just be watching Santa Claus. He'd destroy Santa Claus once and for all. Why hadn't he thought of it before? That day, Evan confined himself to the safety of his home, or more specifically, his bedroom. He distracted himself with computer games and other activities while all the time planning how he was going to get rid of Santa Claus when he made an appearance. Before his father died, he'd had a hunting rifle that hung on a hook in a wall. After his death, it had been hidden away inside his wardrobe, which was, of course, in the bedroom Mom slept in. A gun was Evan's closest shot. Get it? Gun, shot. And it was the only thing he could think of that might kill Santa Claus. What else was he supposed to do? Shout a few defiant words and attack Santa Claus with his bare hands? His dead father's old hunting rifle was the only gun possible for Evan to obtain. The only problem was getting it out of the wardrobe without his mother catching him. And she was sure to get suspicious if she saw him taking a gun out of the wardrobe. This proved to be an easier task than Evan thought, however. When Mom went to do some shopping, Evan went straight to the wardrobe doors and started burrowing through the clothes. It was then that he experienced the seizure. Evan had just caught a sight of the gun when a sudden jolt ran through his body. His muscles were paralyzed, his joint frozen in place. Evan was unable to do anything but stare helplessly as he fell backwards onto the wooden floor. Electricity ran through his body, which was now twitching madly on the floor. Shadows danced in front of his eyes as the visions began. He saw his father, now an ash-covered skeleton wearing a Santa hat, leering down at him through empty eye sockets. He saw a Christmas tree decorated with bloody limbs, organs, and what looked like unraveled intestines. He saw claws curling in front of his eyes, claws that would cut him in two if he did so much as blink. Evan came to just as he heard the car pulling into the driveway. Frantically, his eyes darted around, searching for the hunting rifle. Something thin and black poking out from a pile of clothes caught his eye. The rifle! He snatched it up, bolted towards his room, not remembering to close the wardrobe door. He had just reached his bedroom when Mom opened the front door. It wasn't until his mother called out to him an hour or so later. "Evan, have you been through my wardrobe?" That Evan remembered he had neglected to close the wardrobe door. Yeah," Evan replied, thinking quickly. I was looking for a jacket. You know, since all my other ones are too small, it's pretty cold with the snow and all." Evan was proud his voice didn't so much as quiver. Because of this, Mom didn't pursue the subject any longer. And that one day, Evan experienced a seizure inside the wardrobe, frequent flashes of movement out of the corner of his eye, and a brief hallucination. Usually, it was worse around this time, but Evan had it lucky. The nightmares didn't improve that night. The next day, Evan realized he had no bullets for the rifle. He had forgotten to find some in his panic to get out of the room before his mother saw. Mom didn't go out that day, but Evan decided to have a look through the wardrobe anyway, and if she asked, he'd make up the same lie as yesterday. After some serious rummaging, he found 3 straight bullets hidden in the corner of the wardrobe in a plastic casing. This time, he didn't forget to close the wardrobe door. He put the bullets in his pocket in case Mom should enter the hallway, but she didn't. The plan was looking successful. That day, Santa Claus talked to Evan. The words were spoken inside Evan's head, but Evan knew well who they belonged to. Evan found he couldn't remember most of the speech afterwards, but knew it had something to do with Evan's plan to kill Santa Claus. Of course, Santa Claus could get inside Evan's head, so why shouldn't he be able to read Evan's thoughts? This was what he had done. Still, Evan wasn't prepared to give up so quickly. That day, he might have seen a lot of things that weren't there, but Evan kept his thoughts on that loaded rifle. On the 22nd of December, Evan not only heard Santa Claus and experienced his visions, but also felt Santa Claus on his own flesh. At one point, it felt like a cat was running its claws alongside his arm, but no one was there. Still, that didn't stop blood from flowing. When Mom asked him what had happened to his arm, he said that Stormo had scratched him. Even had an old tabby cat named Stormo and was no stranger to his scratches. Mom didn't notice the seizures and hallucinations simply because Even confined himself to his room all day. It was a pitiful existence, but Even knew he had to do it to avoid suspicion. Mom blamed it on what had happened with his father, relating it to past trauma and as a consequence feeling the need to shut himself away from what the experience had been related to, Christmas. Even didn't have any problem with this. The 23rd passed quickly, but the 24th was the worst day he had experienced so far. He spent much of his time being tormented by the demonic presence of Santa Claus, his frightening messages ringing in his ears. Once Mom walked in the room while he was having a seizure on his bed, but was able to avoid suspicion by saying he was in the middle of a nightmare. Time dragged on. As Even became more and more tormented, Even's mother went to bed early, as she normally did on Christmas Eve. This left Even 2 more hours until Santa Claus made an appearance. Every past year, Even had been at the fireplace at 8:13, but this was because Santa Claus had willed him to be there. He had felt his legs move and had been unable to stop them. Santa Claus wanted Even to be there to see him in the flesh. This was why Even made sure he had the rifle clutched tightly in his hands before the time came. Even glanced at his watch nervously. No, he was past nervous. He was terrified. 8:30 came and nothing happened. But at the 22nd mark, he felt his legs moving down the hallway towards the lounge. His hands opened the lounge door. He approached the fireplace. The curtains were drawn, the lights were out, it was dark, and Even could see nothing save the silhouette of Santa Claus in the fireplace. Cheers. Even could see the outline of a Santa hat on his head, and was no stranger to the claws that hung at the shadow's side. Even felt the presence of Santa Claus, knew that Santa Claus would soon be illuminated by a ghostly light, and even would be able to see him in the flesh. Then he would raise the gun, pull the trigger, and it would be over. Or so he hoped. Even stood there for what seemed like forever. Then the empty, bleeding eye sockets came into view. That white, almost transparent skin, the sharp, bloodied set of teeth that showed from behind slimy lips, the tattered Santa suit smeared with the blood of innocent victims, and worst of all, the long, knife-sharp set of claws that hung at each side. Even was terrified. He stood paralyzed with fear as Santa Claus grinned and raised his hands towards him. Even was unable to move, unable to do anything but watch as the claws came closer and closer, reaching him. It was too late to shoot now. It was all over. But as Even stood frozen, his muscles stiffened, and his finger tightened around the trigger. There was a terrific bang and a blinding flash of light. Then the world faded to black. Even woke to Mom shaking him frantically. He blinked, trying to figure out what had happened. Then he remembered. He had killed Santa Claus. Mom said She had heard a bang and had come in to see what the noise was when she saw that Ivan was holding the hunting rifle. Her first thought was that Ivan had shot himself, but she had seen that there was no noticeable bullet wound and Ivan was clearly still breathing. Ivan was exhausted but too happy to comment. His face broke into a smile. "I did it," he whispered. Mom looked concerned. "You're not well, Ivan. You're going to a doctor as soon as possible. I worry about you." "I killed Santa Claus," Ivan babbled, oblivious to his mother's concerns. He was overcome with joy that Santa Claus would no longer be in his life. "I'm not just worried about you, Ivan. I'm also quite angry with you," Mom said, his eyebrows knitting into a scowl. "Somehow you vandalized the fireplace. It looks like something out of a horror movie." Ivan frowned. "I never vandalized the fireplace." Mom sighed. "Then how do you explain that?" she said, pointing. Ivan twisted his head around to face the fireplace. Solid crimson letters had been written on the brick wall behind the fireplace. The paint looked fresh, and Ivan could see it still trickling down the wall. But not paint, Ivan realized, but blood. "Ho, ho, ho! I'm coming for you." That's it. That's the last story of today. Was it real? Was it a hallucination? Who knows? Yeah. What do you guys think? Do you think it was real? Do you think it was a hallucination? I don't know. At the end, it seems like, I don't know, it could have also been him to paint it, you know? Santa Claus coomed blood. Ho ho, oh no. Was just an elaborate hoax, you decide. 100% real, of course. I mean, do you think that it was Ivan that, like, you know, in his delusion wrote the text? Or was Santa Claus actually real? You know? I guess that's kind of left up to the interpretation. What about the scratches? Was there visible scratches? I think the scratches are more so like, well, from my interpretation, the scratches could have been like, you know, when his father fell down the chimney, he could have tried to cling onto the chimney walls, which, like, you know, wore down his skin to the bone, to which, you know, a child could interpret that as claws. I don't know, I think the imagery of that is really cool, you know? I think it has a really cool concept. I think the ending was a little bit goofy, but I really like that association of, like, you know, the tragedy and then the fact that he started associating this figure with his father to kind of look like his father, you know, the claws. Yeah. The bone looked like the claws makes sense. Yeah. That's the first thing that I instantly thought of. But yeah, everybody, that was the last story of today. Let me get this book out of my face. Did you enjoy that? Did you enjoy the 4 stories? I hope you did. So, whether you are going to sleep or whether you are waking up with the spooky stories, I hope you had a good time and I hope you were comfy. I hope you don't have any nightmares. What about the ear massage of the ghost of Christmas present? The ear massage of the ghost of Christmas present? I don't think that's a thing. I think you just want an excuse to get an ear massage. Gonna get our ears clawed by the Mitty before you go. I'm the Santa Claus.
Send.
Yes, yes, yes. I need a Mitty hug or I'll have nightmares. Oh, come on, Lucky Charms. Don't you feel the holly jolly spooky Christmas? Come here. Oh frick. My glasses. My glasses hit your head. Come here.
There. Don't be scared. Tell me, which one was your favorite? Which story did you like the most?
Personally, I really liked the zombie flick. I thought it was nice. I wasn't expecting it to be nearly as good as it was. Yes. I loved it. The cookie one was fun. Yes. This me one, makes me think of, like, you know, when you're really paranoid in a place that is scary and, like, you start imagining people there and stuff. Honestly, sometimes when I read these stories, I'm worried that they're gonna be like really poopy and not fun at all and like kind of bad. But I think all the stories that I told today, I liked them to a very, genuine extent. I was really into it. Some of them, like this last one, were kind of goofy, but yeah, today was fun stories. I like these stories a lot. When I don't, you can tell. You can tell I'm like, okay, that was freaking weird. But yeah, I like these. Smee was a bit odd for my taste. I think the problem I had with Smee was that I was a little bit confused with the actual game and the way it worked. Yeah. You like the Shmee one the most? Ghost stuff is neat. Yeah. I kind of wish it was a bit more Christmassy though. Like, yes, it was like on Christmas Eve, but it's that one kind of story that doesn't have to happen on Christmas Eve. I think it could maybe have some more elements, like maybe she died in a gruesome way related to Christmas, like, I don't know, maybe she got tangled in Christmas lights. Just a random idea. Or stabbed by a tree at the end of the... Can you imagine when she fell down the basement if there was like a Christmas tree there? She would have been stabbed by it. That would have been hella metal. Yes. I have to listen to this again because I nodded off. I'm glad. I hope you enjoyed it. I don't really do ASMR all that often, but I hope this was enjoyable. I'm very rusty. I hope I didn't get too loud at points. I hope the volume was okay. But yeah, shush. Santa Claus reminds me a little about the Krampus SCP, forgot the number. Oh yeah. I debated reading Krampus Creepypasta. It was a two-parter, but I figured I already played a game about Krampus this year. Yeah. Alright, so lucky charms. I hope you have a good rest of Sunday. Okay. I'll probably go and play my holly jolly Minecraft, or maybe do some other work today, or maybe just rest, my holly jolly rest. So I'll wrap it up here before my parents wake up and start scrambling around and making all the noise in the house. So yeah, have a holly jolly Christmas. Christmas is in a week. Did you know? Next week is Christmas. Oh my god, time is going by way too fast, isn't it? So yeah, it's been nice to see you. I'll see you soon. Tomorrow's my day off, but I gotta stream the day after, I think. Wait. I don't know. I'll post the schedule. The schedule's done. Alright. I'll see you guys later. Okay?